First of all, buenos dias, damas y caballeros. Welcome to my desktop. Considering the odd circumstances of the pandemic, I think it's important to begin by acknowledging the impact it had on my creative process. Not necessarily positive or negative, but definitely different. In a quite contradictory way, the sudden space limitations acted as enhancers of possibilities, an open invitation for the rediscovery of space within a space. A good example would be my stone portal project, where deriving from my previous catalog publication of my rock collection based on color, I started exploring a different quality of these objects with whom I shared my everyday life. Their deep connection to memory and location served as escape routes for my mind. I was thrilled and a bit intimidated by the idea of visualizing this effect through a website. But really, this was the ideal medium to break the boundaries of my isolation and be able to share it with others. Surprisingly, despite my coding insecurities, I found a new drive to link what I've collected for my process book assignment to this concept and content. Persistence prevailed and things started flowing in a very playful way. It was a slow and tedious journey, and despite the outcome not being necessarily very elaborate, it really felt like a victory to grasp this web development language. Another project deeply linked to quarantine and its effects on time and space was the passage of entanglement. It took me some time to warm up during the first stages of experimentation with the different methods. Tired of using just the computer as canvas, I needed to regain tangibility with my layout, so I started to look around me and find ways to generate visuals and text with found materials. That's when I noticed the subtle ways of, for instance, how the light in my room projected itself inside my few square meters world, how it spoke to me about my new reality and probably many others. I came to the realization that in order to make, first one must observe. The previous outcome made it clear that I worked better when I could use my hands. So when the mail art project was introduced, I didn't hesitate and created my own paper mill workshop, something that I've always wanted to do. As a silent but present reflection, I used my favorite poem as a starting point to translate my routine through this material. A way to talk with my colleagues, but also allow them to talk back on the same surface. It was a good reminder of how the medium can speak powerfully just by itself. Before any news of the corona outbreak had reached my ears, this semester I had already set myself the goal to dive deeper into publication and editorial skills, something I hadn't really done before or even avoided doing. My first publication of the year, redesigning the book Travels in Alaska by John Muir, is a great example of this rather bumpy ride. I struggled a lot with determining my grid, and even my choice of typeface was compromising readability. No change seemed to be able to overcome the obstacles, and I started to feel rather helpless. It was clear I needed to simplify my approach, so I decided to isolate each element and inspect it individually. Unsurprisingly, by doing so, I realized my grid could become the overlapping of these different elements by hierarchy. Again, perseverance was key to push my outcome. Lastly, a very enriching experience was during one of my IST projects where I collaborated with a student from IMD, Martin Kos. This new dynamic of having a client made me approach the task at hand, creating a publication about catharsis through the extreme, in this case, in a more serious way, and helped me reaffirm my knowledge on typography. It was intense work, a constant ping pong of checking and rechecking, of polishing my communication skills to translate Martin's writing and visuals in the best possible way. And of course, also going into more technical things such as paper choice, printing, and binding. Having the final outcome on my hands filled me with pride and strengthened my confidence. Overall, I'm happy to finally see all the work laid out, to look back into the great mental and emotional challenges this semester has been, and see that I did not only overcome it, but was able to take in this discomforting and groundbreaking situation to strengthen my foundations. So thank you in advance and see you on Wednesday.